Hey, it's Ben Wise, and welcome to our second video in our guide to concurrent training. So concurrent training, for those of you who aren't super familiar with it, it's basically saying like we're taking two qualities and we're training them sort of at the same time or within the same cycle, within the same calendar year, right? So that's what we mean by concurrently. We're basically doing it at the same time. So we're looking at strength and capacity here. So we want to improve someone's, for example, 1RM numbers, and we're trying to improve their row capacity in the example that we're going to be giving here. So yeah, this is in our guide to concurrent training, which is an entire article that's blown out on the site. If you're just someone who's watching this on YouTube and you have access to it, I'm just doing this as a one-time thing to see how it works. But yeah, basically realize that there's a lot more to this. And if you want the entire thing, you can have a 7-day free trial of Pro and read the entire thing. If you would like, you can go to the comments below and yeah, get the link to that. It's zoarfitness.com/pro-trial. So I hope you check that out if you enjoyed this video. So today I'm actually gonna be talking about a CrossFit athlete. This is our second example. There was a video one if you wanna check that out as well. And as I mentioned, this athlete is really working on their Olympic lifting and their rowing. So let's kind of go over this avatar, this made up person that I have here, and get some more details about them, because I find that, you know, if it's something where, you know, we leave it too vague in general, it's really not applicable and actually useful to you. So let's go over this. So this person is a 28-year-old male. They're single. So they don't have a spouse or kids or a ton of responsibilities that might come along with that. They coach 18 classes a week. So this person works at a CrossFit affiliate. They have a moderate class load. They have a few one-on-one clients in addition to that. They have enough money where they support themselves, not a ton of extras, but they don't have a lot of responsibilities either. So a pretty flexible schedule, a pretty relaxed, and pretty, yeah, again, low stress life in this case. So they're coming off an off-season phase that is post quarterfinals. So quarterfinals, CrossFit quarterfinals was the end of their competitive season. They didn't advance to semifinals. So they took some time to get healthy. I kind of walked them through the process of, you know, taking some time off and then, yeah, doing some things that they didn't do before, having some fun, doing some other types of training modalities that they didn't typically do as much in their competitive season. Just kind of, you know, get healthy again and to sort of revive and get back into the enjoyment of training. So we're done with that. So we moved on for that. So they're sort of in the place where they're now ready to get back into a little bit more aggressive training again in the off-season phase. So their next event, they have a local comp coming up in October, but it's not something that they're taking super seriously. They're much more focused on the actual CrossFit season and wanting to perform as best they can there. So that's sort of the person, the avatar that we're dealing with here. And then a few other things that we should know about them. Quarterfinals, that test revealed two major weaknesses, or I should say confirmed two major weaknesses that they already had that we have identified, which is their Olympic weightlifting. Like their snatch and clean and jerk numbers are really not what they could be or should be for, again, relative to the other people that they're competing against. And yeah, the snatch is more of like a technique positional type thing. And the clean and jerk, they're relatively efficient there. It's just like their squat numbers need to be higher. So for example, they didn't do super great on the 4RM front squat, event 4, or event 3, the wall ball plus rowing event. So that was sort of the other limiter here, is that they're rowing, their, you know, pace, if we're just talking about like sustainability, but also like repeatability if it's like a rounds or time type environment, like a 19-1 scenario, both of those they tend not to do very well. And so it's sort of like a rowing across the board. So for this athlete, we decided to use the 2K time trial as sort of a proxy for their development in rowing, just so we have a measurable, and then their 1RMs for their snatch and clean and jerk. So again, another thing that I think is a limitation is that we probably still have some unknowns about this athlete. Even though I've kind of gone through that, it's hard for me to like write this fake personal training template unless I have a little bit more information. So I'm going to pretend like I'm going through a consult process with this person, or like a coaching call, where I'm having more of a conversation Q&A type thing with them. So what's your goal for next year? Make the semifinals. I was 227th this year in North America, so I think that's within reach, right? Provided that top 120 in North America advances to the next round, I think I'd probably agree with them. Like top 120, that's certainly a big jump in placing, but it's also doable and like certainly a good goal to try to go after, right? What's your schedule look like these days? I'm pretty flexible. I mean, I'm already at the gym pretty much all day, so I can get training sessions in before, after coaching classes as I need to. What do you think about taking this next training cycle on really focusing on your ollie lifts and your row capacity? This is actually something that I'll do quite a bit. It's like I'll word things in a way where the athlete will then like say what they think, but it was sort of like an implanted thought into their head, and they're like, oh yeah, like that is a good idea that we should be working on this. And then they tend to be more bought in if they think it's coming from them and their own sort of thought process. But it's something that's really helpful. Anyway. Absolutely, my Ollie 1RMs and row ability are clearly holding me back. I'm ready to hammer those. Again, they're in the point in their season now where they're pretty healthy, they're fresh, they're coming off that off-season phase where they're ready to get after it again. And we've likely already talked about and dialogued with like, okay, these are some of your weaknesses, these are stuff that we need to work on. We've reflected on that previous season. Again, you feel ready to go again, let's get after it. That's sort of where they're at. So a few principles that I want to pull out of this. Number one principle is that in the off season is the time to improve physiological limitations. So as you're getting closer to competing, you are not trying to improve your VO2 max. You're not trying to improve your 1RM back squat, because likely those things are not going to get tested, right? You're much more likely to get tests in the Olympic lifts in CrossFit. You're much more likely to have any sort of Metcon or mixed work. You're not gonna have someone like hooking an oxygen tank up to you and checking your VO2 max is what I'm saying, or a mask. So that being said, that's what I'm trying to get after here, right? And like those are just proxies to performance, and it's important that we raise the ceiling on their performance. But that needs to happen in the off season because we need to focus on the sport specificity and expression of that fitness going into the competitive season. So the off season is the time to really focus on driving up some of their specific relative limiters in the sport. And because of that, we can pull back some of the mixed work. We can pull back some of the Metcons. We can pull back a little bit of some of the other, volume of other skills that they had to touch on because they had to get ready to compete like now, versus now we have several months, right? They have the skills. They're not going to lose the skills overnight. It's pulling back on those a little bit, narrowing the priorities to allow for more of a physiological push in one direction in this case. Another principle is that you can't get better at everything all the time. So again, we're not trying to get them better at getting, their muscle ups better and their, double unders and their this and their that, and we have 10 priorities. That they'll not adapt to any of them, right? We're much better off having everything be a little bit narrower, right? And making sure that they actually get better at those things. So having 1 or 2, maybe 3 main priorities would work well. And then again, everything else goes on maintenance mode. So for example, oftentimes these things are conflicting. So it would be really easy for me to say, oh, I want them to do touch and go deadlifts and rowing, which you could do that. But those are the same pattern. It's much more likely that you're going to see overuse type things start to pop up if you're doing or training in that way. So it's just important to think about your priorities, what's going to mesh well together. For example, if I was going to have a third priority, something like ring muscle ups would actually probably fit in here pretty well because it's more upper body dominant, or even like an upper body press, like a strict handstand push-up would go really well in this as well. So those types of things are going to mesh really well. Again, it's just something where you're gonna have to work through it with your coach if you have a coach. Last, volume is endurance, load is intensity. So just as it says, if you're doing more because you're trying to get your capacity of endurance higher, that raise that ceiling, you have to be doing more, which means that you're spending more time on the road, you're getting more pulls, the volume is higher, right? Likewise, if you're trying to have maximal expression, you need intensity, meaning like percentage of your 1RMs or load on the bar to bump that number up, right? So you're trying to get load to be as high as possible within reason and like undulating it and having it, following all the good training principles. But basically, in order to express a load, intensity has got to go up over time. So those things are opposite ends of the spectrum. And that's what we're talking about in concurrent training. This is the seesaw or the balancing that we're trying to manage in this training cycle. It's not even necessarily like, I don't necessarily have a really strong solution to this, but it's something that you need to be aware of, right? So it's important that I know that if they do super stressful energy systems training one session and they try to go back squat the next and they're just kind of drained and flat and they can't produce a lot of tension, or like they don't have good glycogen stores, whatever the case is, right? They're not able to actually express well, and that's sort of blunting their potential for adaptation down the road. So it's just something that we need to be aware of. And then we need to make sure that we're monitoring their systemic tension, just as I said, and their joint health. Because again, if we're just hammering snatches and clean and jerks and rowing and all of like, maybe a lot of knee flexion for them, certainly things could start to pop up that are an issue for them. So I actually want to go through a sample training week for this athlete. First thing I would do is actually create their template that I'm going to build the weekly progression off of, or their actual sessions that they would be doing off of. So that's that thin gray line at the top, and that's sort of, again, that's the constraints that I'm putting on the program and the priorities and the focuses that I want to stick in particular sessions. So basically you can see they have 6 days that they're training. Thursday's a majority rest day, Sunday will be off completely. And each of those days has an AM and a PM. The ones on Thursday are pretty non-stressful, and not every single day, like Tuesday and Saturday PMs aren't super stressful. It's a row accumulation in that case. So zone 1 not being super challenging. But that being said, let's get into it. Monday is AM is snatch and back squat. So those are the main stressful pieces, right? Certainly I'll be adding warm-ups, I will be adding primer type things, I'll be adding accessory work or like other mobility routines or joint health stuff. But those are the main stress pieces, right? In the PM, we're gonna be doing a broken Metcon with cyclical work or a cyclical component. So a broken Metcon, the example that I have down here, if you look to the actual week that's built out in the PM, is a 20-minute AMRAP of a 6 alternating dumbbell box step up, 6 calorie ski, 6 dumbbell thrusters, and a 6 calorie ski again. So it's just, and then the key here is rest 1 minute between rounds before moving on, right? So it's a 20-minute AMRAP, but it's got that mandatory built-in rest. So it's like broken in the sense that they're going to be able to sustain actually higher paces. They're gonna have that fatigue not get accumulated as much. It's gonna be easier on them, and they're gonna be able to sustain a higher movement quality while they're actually going through that process. Tuesday AM is clean and jerk and pulls. So again, actually working on their, just like a clean jerk percentage, a build there, progression. And then you also see that after the clean pulls, I have some strict handstand push-up work because I just find that goes well with that particular pattern. You're already doing jerks, your shoulders are nice and warm, just go into some strict handstand push-ups after that. So that's the kind of stuff where you can have some, again, maintenance doses of a lot of the other skills that are needed for the sport, but it's not like a main stressful piece. PM is that row accumulation. So this is pretty easy aerobic work. I'm making sure that they get off the erg once every like 10 minutes for like a minute, just to like kind of shake out the legs. Make sure not too much butt fatigue sets in. But again, zone 1 is pretty easy, and they're just kind of getting on there and moving. And you'll see that's on there on the Thursday PM and also Saturday PM. And realistically, I'm not gonna progress that much week over week. It's gonna look pretty much the same. And then maybe as they get closer doing like a row time trial, or they've gotten to the point where they've earned to pull out some of that volume, we'll start to slide that towards maybe intensity, or maybe just pull out that session completely depending on that athlete. So Wednesday AM is back squat followed by mixed intervals. So again, that back squat progression is staying in there. And mixed intervals is basically saying like, we're doing touches of sport movements that you're gonna see in the sport, and we're making sure that we're doing it at a high quality and at a high turnover rate. So the example here is 6 rounds at an ascending pace, 16 cal air bike, 14 toes to bar, 12 bar facing burpees, rest 90 seconds between rounds. And then you have to, this is like the asterisk there, you have to increase the pace of that each round, or you stop the workout, you terminate the workout. PM, this is the first time that he's actually seeing some harder row energy systems training. And we're gonna progress this week over week. So the main bulk of the stress piece here is 4 sets of a 500 meter row, so 2K total volume, 500 meter row at a ramping pace. So every 100 meters, you're gonna pick up your pace, or he's gonna pick up his pace. So the first 100, it'll be at your 2K plus 10 seconds. So if his 2K was a 143, he's gonna be rowing at a 153. And then every 100 meters, it's gonna drop 4 seconds per 500 meters in terms of his pace, so that he's ending at 6 seconds faster than his 2K time trial pace. He'll rest 3 minutes on the air bike between rounds, and then he's gonna repeat that for 4 total sets. Thursday is just some movement work in the morning, just to stay healthy and keep the movement sharp and the positions nice and ready. And then the PM is that aerobic work again, as we mentioned before. Friday, we're back to the stressful stuff. AM is the snatch and front squat. I really like that combination. And for 2 reasons. One, we're getting another touch on snatching in the week and developing that skill in those positions further. And then also, we've only clean jerked once this week so far, and I know they're pretty efficient in the clean jerk when we've been squatting a lot, but they haven't done clean jerk much. So understanding that, okay, we're gonna have you front squat because at least you can get that bar into the front rack and get under the weight when it's actually out in front of your center of mass. And that combined with some maybe warm-up touches and metcons of like power cleans and stuff throughout the week will help kind of keep them sharp on the clean and jerk. In their PM, that's their second row energy systems day. So you'll see that the main bulk of the stress is 20 sets, 35-second row at their 2K pace minus 3 to 5 seconds. So again, if their 2K pace is 143, they're gonna be rowing at a 140 to 138 in that range. Rest 25 seconds, and they're doing that 20 sets consecutively moving through. So if at any point they fail, this probably wouldn't be the first week in this progression, by the way. I'd probably have them start at maybe 25 seconds on, 35 seconds off, and then like 30, then maybe we'll get to the point where we're 35 seconds on, 25 seconds off. Likely, let's just assume that they progress fine through that and they could handle that pretty well. They would then get to this point where they can do it. However, if they're not able to maintain it, they'd break that, like for any point, if they can't sustain it, they rest a full minute and then repeat or sort of jump back into the actual workout. Saturday is the name game. It is a chance to compete for all of my athletes, and it's a way for them to develop their competition in game day scenario skills, right? So as a look at the sport, it's something that's pretty complementary with their week. Like it's a lot of gymnastics here. They're doing a lot of weightlifting earlier in the week and energy systems work. So no cyclical elements, and it's basically, a lot of gymnastics. So that kind of fits well in their week, and it's an opportunity for them to compete still and get a touch on that, even though they're in the off season. And then in the PM, they're again going back to that easy row and just accumulating that work over time. So there you have it. That's sort of how I would potentially blow out a split for a CrossFit athlete if they're doing some sort of concurrent training in their limitation or limiter phase of training. And in case you did miss it, there is a part 1 here where I actually looked at what I'm calling a hybrid athlete, where they're doing powerlifting and endurance running. So if you enjoyed this piece and you want to learn a little bit more about concurrent training, be sure to check that out. That one's also live and free to the public, so you can certainly check it out. If you're someone who, again, is just watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. But also, you can view the entire guide to concurrent training if you go to the link below. If you go to zoarfitness.com/pro-trial, you can get pro for 7 days for free. And also along with that, you'll be able to view this entire guide. So I hope you found this helpful. Hope you do something with it.